Matt, we got the news last night, the results of the writers' vote for the Baseball Hall of Fame, the class of 2022, and David Ortiz is in. That's it. Nobody else was elected. It was Ortiz's first year on the ballot, and he just made the cut, 77.9% of the required 75% vote. So Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Curt Schilling, no-goes, all falling short in their last year of eligibility. A-Rod, not even close in his first year.
Yeah, so for the last week, Outside the Lines has been examining the cases for and against those 5 players. Today, now that we have the conclusion of it, they wrap the series, and Schreiner declined with a discussion of the meaning of what we saw last night and what lies ahead. Here's Jeremy Schaap.
If we told you in 2002 that 20 years hence, David Ortiz would be going to the Hall of Fame and Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, and Alex Rodriguez would all be on the outside looking in, well, you would have demanded that we surrender our pundit credentials. Absurd. A 26-year-old DH released by the Twins versus those other guys, the preeminent players of their era. But that's exactly where we are as baseball and the Hall of Fame continue to grapple with the age of steroids in strange and discomforting ways. With the news last night that Ortiz was in on the first ballot while time had run out for Clemens, Bonds, Sosa, and Curt Schilling, some fans reacted with disgust and outrage at what they see as double standards, and others with glee, especially Red Sox fans. For his part, Roger Clemens posted a statement on social media. He said, in part, "My family and I put the Hall of Fame in the rearview mirror 10 years ago. I didn't play baseball to get into the Hall of Fame. I would like to thank those who took the time to look at the facts and vote for me. Hopefully everyone can now close this book and keep their eyes forward, focusing on what's really important in life." Both Alex Rodriguez and Curt Schilling congratulated David Ortiz. Schilling also posted a video of himself working around ferrets. There was no statement from Barry Bonds. Here was Ortiz after receiving the news of his selection.
I feel so thankful and grateful for, being able to accomplish what I was able to accomplish. And thanks God, had the career that I had.
And for more, we are joined now by 2 of the most respected and veteran members of the Baseball Writers Association, ESPN's own Tim Kurkjian, and Terence Moore, the national sports columnist for Forbes.com. He is also the author of the upcoming biography, The Real Hank Aaron. Terence, let's start with you. What's your big takeaway from this year's results?
Well, it's the fact that everybody still thinks that Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens should not be in the Hall of Fame because of what they did or what they allegedly did. And I can't argue with them, even though I voted for Barry Bonds for the first time. And the reason I can't argue with them, and I'd be interested to see what Tim says about this, when it comes to voting for the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I've done it for more than 30 years, you can either be a loose constructionist or a strict constructionist when it comes to the rules. And there's only really one that counts, okay? I have always been a strict constructionist to that one rule that counts that says you've got to consider integrity and character. And when you do that, you got to say those guys shouldn't be in there. But, there's an asterisk as to why I voted for Barry Bonds this time, which we can get into later in the segment, I suppose. But I believe for the most part, and for a huge part, that the baseball writers, we got it right, those of us who vote for the Hall of Fame.
Well, like Terence, I voted for the last 31 years, and I don't want any sympathy for this, Jeremy, but this is the hardest process I've ever had to deal with in all the years that I've covered baseball, because Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, to me, are in one category over here when it comes to PEDs. David Ortiz, who got in on the first ballot, is in a slightly different category over here, and Alex Rodriguez and Manny Ramirez are in a different category over there. It just proves again how difficult this exercise is now. Every time I look at my ballot when I'm finished, the last 10 years, I always say, I didn't get this right. I'm just not sure you can get it right anymore, given all the uncertainty on certain players and just the inconsistencies in the voting process. It's really, really hard to do. We're doing the best we can here, but when you say you got it right, I'm not sure that's possible anymore.
I know it's complicated, Tim, but why do you say David Ortiz is in a different category than the others in terms of PEDs?
Right. Well, as we know, Jeremy, he was in the Mitchell report in 2003, and he apparently tested positive, but we're still not sure if he tested positive for a banned substance. And unlike some other guys, McGuire, Palmeiro, who had their day in court to at least explain it, those guys in the Mitchell report, which was supposed to be anonymous, never got a chance to explain themselves. And in the end, the commissioner of baseball, Rob Manfred, gave David Ortiz a pass on this. He must know something. I think that's why he's in a slightly different category than Bonds and Clemens, and I vote for both of those, and he's in a different category than, say, A-Rod and Manny Ramirez.
Yeah, and Jeremy,
Terence.
to piggyback on what just said right there, I mean, and this goes back to what I was alluding to in the beginning about an asterisk. And Tim is right. It's been very difficult to vote here because you got to take all these things, individually. I, too, voted for David Ortiz simply because, as Tim pointed out, if you got the commissioner of baseball, Rod Manfred, saying that, hey, there's nothing to see here, that's good enough for me, okay? But I want to get back to the Barry Bonds thing. Like for the previous 9 times he's been on the ballot, I did not vote for him. Again, strict constructionist, integrity, and character. But the reason I voted for him this time was very much, and it is still very much influenced by my relationship with Hank Aaron. I knew Hank Aaron for 40 years. And Hank's thing is, which I point out in my book, he had some considerable problems with Barry Bonds, okay? But the one thing that Hank always told me was, unless and until Barry Bonds admitted that he used steroids on purpose, you can't ignore what he did.
Tim, Kurkjian, whom you voted for, didn't make it either. His numbers dropped from 71 to 59%. He has a history of hate speech on social media. He showed support for the mob that stormed the Capitol a year ago. It seems clear that he would be in based strictly on his baseball credentials. What are the implications for the Hall drawing this line with Kurkjian?
Well, it's the Hall's club, and they can draw any line that they like, and that's their philosophy. I voted for Kurkjian every year, and some of the things that he said in recent years on social media have made me uncomfortable, but I have decided that I'm voting on him as a baseball player in a career that finished 15 years ago. And even though his numbers aren't, Greg Maddux, Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez numbers, they're Hall of Fame numbers for me, especially his postseason numbers. But yes, he will get another shot at this, as will Bonds and Clemens and Sammy Sosa, potentially, all 4 of them, in a special ballot in December, where 16 people will be in the room and they'll be judged at that time. But the Schilling thing is very interesting. I think if he had moved to Montana and not said a word the last 15 years, he would be in the Hall of Fame.
Hey, Jeremy.
Terence, you didn't vote. You didn't vote for Kurkjian. Yeah. Why not?
I just don't think he had the Hall of Fame numbers. I mean, that's it again. And this is what makes it such a great system. Even beyond the fact that I personally think that he is not the best human being on the face of the earth, I just don't think he had the numbers. But I want to say this real quick, and I know that we'll probably deal with this in another show, but one of the things that keeps, to me, is the elephant in the room, when you look at all this thing with the steroids thing, it's the Pete Rose thing, okay? Pete Rose, now this is a whole different animal in the sense that you've got Major League Baseball right now being involved in, gambling type entities like DraftKings and what have you. That's something that really needs to be revisited more so than anything else. The all-time hits king and everything else. I think that's more of a glaring omission than anything that we've talked about here or could talk about when it comes to guys of the steroid era.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.